Welcome to the Rebel Rise podcast, a place where values-driven founders on a mission for more come to connect, learn, and grow. Here, we celebrate the relentless spirit of leaders building businesses that create real good for their clients, communities, and the world. No subject is off limits, and every episode is designed to bring you clear strategy, steady leadership, and people-first operations you can actually sustain. Get ready to grow ethically, lead well, and build something that works without burning you out. Your impact journey begins right here. Let's go. She's built businesses, led teams, checked all of the boxes, and somewhere along the way, realized that the most important ingredient wasn't in any of the playbooks. Jennifer DeSorda has spent decades owning and operating businesses across multiple states, built thriving consulting practices spanning more than 18 industries, and leading coaching operations at mastermind.com inside the world of Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi. She has lived the grind, worked the strategies, and delivered real results. And what she discovered through all of it is this: the true secret to lasting success that feeds your soul isn't the tools or even the tactics. It's in the identity, in the alignment. It's building a business that is a genuine expression of who you are. That discovery is now at the core of everything that she does and the heartbeat behind her first book and podcast, both called Standing Tits Up, launching this month. Now let's dive in. All right, Jen, welcome to Rebel Rise.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me, Vanessa. I just am very excited to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you too. And I am really excited to dive into this conversation because not only do we have a lot of really great, super deep things you and I have talked about offline, but we have so many things in common, not only with, our belief and our alignment within business, but also our background in health and fitness and literally all of the things. So I'm excited to dive in, and I would love to have you start just with your journey, starting with professional experience, dance fitness, because that is one of our main connecting points, but it's also a clear through line to business as well. So I want to have you just kind of start at the beginning.
Oh, absolutely. And, it's always hard to start, like, where do you start, in the scheme of things from all those little entrepreneurial things you did when you were very young. And I think it kind of sets the seed. But, I was blessed to be exposed to the entrepreneurial journey in my teenage years. And so the key for me mentioning that now is that it also started me in personal development, which was so important to get on that road to like thinking about how I was thinking and my mindset. And that was also the same time frame I started in my fitness journey. It was like I was 15 years old teaching classes for the first time. So those two roads kind of went hand in hand. And the fitness journey continued to evolve over the years and still is evolving. I still teach, classes as we speak, and just don't think I'll ever give up teaching classes. But my journey in fitness was not, just teaching, but running fitness clubs and, being a part of helping owners over the years. So it blended from being fitness for something that I loved and loved teaching and impacting others to being a part of my entrepreneurial journey. And then ultimately a part of consulting and being able to work specifically with people in the fitness space to help them to grow their fitness businesses and look at it. But then along the way, as I've been very blessed to be a part of other organizations and companies related to mindset and coaching and financial literacy and just bringing powerful things to help people change their lives and change the world. So I guess for me, now that I'm speaking this out loud, right? For me, there has been a through line with the choices of, what I've done in my careers, but also my choices in business because it's all been for wanting to make an impact. I mean, I've had jobs that were maybe didn't feel that way at the time, but everything I've gravitated towards was because there was a bigger purpose in the world and allowing me to make an impact in people's lives. And then that brings us to how you and I met through mastermind.com many, many years ago now. And we've had the opportunity, you and I together, to, change the lives of students as well as our teams and inside the company internally. So yeah, now that I think back at it, it's really been a fun ride.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. And what's
Yeah.
interesting is as I'm hearing you talk about how your entrepreneur journey started around the same time your fitness journey started, that was the
Mhm.
same for me, not quite as early. I had
Mm.
tried to have little businesses when I was younger and tried to get fitness into my life when I was younger, and it just
Yeah.
didn't really align. And
Yeah.
then when I finally hit my rock bottom around 2019, the peak of COVID in 2020, that was
Mhm.
when those two things really came together for me. And as I
Mhm.
started my fitness journey with dance fitness, I wasn't an instructor quite yet, but I was sharing my journey online, and that was what led me into coaching and then into entrepreneurship in a way that I was actually getting momentum for the first time. And so
Mhm.
I love that you mentioned that. And
Mhm.
not only because we have those two parallels, albeit at different points in our life, but
Right.
also because it's self-development, no matter which way you slice it, because
Right.
health and wellness is a very personal thing and you have to change your identity, but so is
Mhm.
entrepreneurship. They
Yeah.
talk about entrepreneurship being hard, but they don't ever tell you that it's a you versus you game. It's the long game every single day.
Mhm.
So really the two are so parallel. And I
Yeah.
think one without the other, you almost have an imbalance as
Mhm.
you're starting on this journey. Or not if you are just on a fitness journey. You don't have to be an entrepreneur, but I think you need a fitness journey in order to be an entrepreneur as
Mhm.
well. And I
Right.
do see that parallel run across many successful business owners as well.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what was that like for you? How did you draw those parallels, and how have you benefited in that way?
Yeah, great question. And, to your point, anyone who is either, evolving in their careers, an entrepreneur, maybe an executive, someone who's really passionate about what they do for their work and what they bring to the world through that, you're right. It's so important to be taking care of you. There's not one side without the other. You can't just take care of everybody else and someone's company and your company and not take care of yourself. We do that. I don't know about you, but I can go back and all the times that I have just poured into work and thought, I don't have time to go to the gym right now and I don't have time for this, and sacrifice that side. And everything was messy and unclear and nothing felt aligned and nothing felt good. And then you stop, you breathe, and you get back into your own body and your own journey. And all of a sudden there's clarity and there's peace and there's joy, and all of the things that you're navigating through in your business just kind of align better because you're aligning with it and how you're taking care of yourself. So yeah, it's interesting because for me, fitness was fun in the beginning, right? It became something that I was enjoying when I first stepped into it because I was lousy at sports, but I fell in love with the aerobics craze and all of those things. But then it became business too. And so it was kind of finding that blend between the two. But to answer your question, I can't imagine now one without the other because again, I feel the whole in the way that I'm operating, whether I'm an employee or whether it's development of my business or whether it's consulting others on their business. I feel the whole there when I'm not aligned internally, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Is that answering your question?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I actually love that you are mentioning alignment because that was going to be my next thing is like that was a big thing that I learned and I assume you did too is
Mm-hmm.
the authenticity and the alignment piece that comes with both of these journeys as you start
Mm-hmm.
to really settle into it, right? Like the newness starts to wear off and you realize I don't need to perform for the other people in the room beside me or the other entrepreneurs who are building beside me because again it is me versus me, and I need to know where I'm at, right? I have to listen to my body in both examples, right? I need to stay focused on my goals and not on everybody else's. And that's been a really big lesson for me too,
Yeah.
is the authenticity piece, just
Yeah.
showing up as yourself, speaking your mind, saying what you believe, and always staying in alignment with that no matter where you're at. And I know that
Mhm.
you're also very big on that too, but it's also so important again in health and wellness, because
Yeah.
you can also end up injuring yourself pretty bad if you're
Yeah.
trying to compete with the person next to you who may have been
Right.
doing this much longer.
Yeah. No, I agree. And to your point, as our businesses evolve, as our life evolves, as we get older, as we go through the different stages of just life's journey itself, we're continuing to evolve with who we are, right? We're developing our identity. For some, their identity will change over the years, right? Maybe they get married and so they have an identity in the relationship, and then perhaps a parent, and then they move on and maybe it's a grandparent, whatever it happens to be. So there's this evolution of identity in our personal lives. For you and I, it's the singleness identity that we are in
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
And the same thing with our business, there's that identity with it. So the correlation, I think, we're going through an identity changes and growth and progression and, developing who we are as individuals. And sometimes I think we don't honor that when it comes to how we're looking at our business. It's almost like we compartmentalize things in our life. Well, all I've got to do is do the things, right? It's the tools, it's the tactics, it's what's the best next system that I should use and what my algorithms need to be. And it's all about the data and all of those aspects of business. And those things are important, but if you leave off that personal side of who you are as a person in that stage of your life, then your business tends to struggle. And you giving your best to the people that you're serving tends to not be on par or as good as it could be. And to your point, Vanessa, you talked about just the alignment, along the way, and just finding your voice, right? And finding your voice doesn't always happen in the tools and the tactics and following the systems and the spreadsheets and the metrics and all those things. It happens because of how we're evolving as human beings. So tying that back into fitness, oh my goodness, it's a chance to really get to know yourself. That business is an internal game. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, that from your own journey, but it's such an internal game. And I think the one thing that isn't talked about enough for entrepreneurs is that you need to dedicate as much time or more time to yourself as you do to your business, because of how they align, because they're going to be together whether they're on the same track or whether they're not on the same track. So it's just a matter of, okay, are you aligning this and it's working really well for you? Or is something in your personal and physical life off? And so it's not aligned and then everything's not, coming together. So that physical fitness aspect, it clears our minds. It makes our bodies feel good. We figure out who we are and we build confidence. And so you discover your voice and you discover how to not give a rip about what someone else thinks about you. So that aspect of just staying involved with a physical component to our lives, I think is so critically important. It's almost like you want to sit down with business owners and go, okay, before we talk about the development of your business, let's talk about what you're doing for your body, your
Yeah.
mind, and your health, because that's almost like the most solid foundation that you can build. And then your business building on top of that, you just can't go wrong.
Yeah. And that can be really difficult too as you're building a
Mhm.
business, because you get so busy. And that's been me. It's been a lot of back and forth of trying to make sure I'm prioritizing my health and my wellness, but also taking care of the business. And so it's been this constant dance. But every time I have let my health and wellness fall to the wayside, I've felt so crappy. My sleep was worse. I was more stressed about my business than I was if I simply took the hour for class plus travel time that sometimes feels like, oh my God, I don't have time for this. But
Yeah.
every time you do it, you feel better. And at least for me, I can operate from a greater place of presence within my business,
Mhm.
show up better for my team, show up better for my clients, which is
Mhm.
incredibly important. And
Yeah.
they would rather, I think, have somebody who, maybe you make a couple mistakes, which, side note, you're going to make anyways, but for you to take care of yourself, for you to show up as a whole human that can
Yeah.
really be engaged in conversation and really
Hmm.
stay creative with the process
Right.
of, the client journey and
Right.
the products that you're offering as well. Like, it all
Right.
stems from our mental and our physical well-being.
Yeah.
So we do need that first and
Yeah.
foremost.
You made a good point too about just our presence and that creativeness and our
Mhm.
mental well-being. And sometimes we don't slow down as entrepreneurs and we don't allow ourselves some quiet space. We are always filling it with something because we're learning and we're trying to gather all the information we can in the times that we're not pouring into, our clients along the way. And I think that's also where your health journey, not just physical activity, but your health journey comes in, because that area of health is not just going to the gym and listening to great music while you're lifting weights or doing a class. It's also the quiet that you spend. Maybe it's that, walk, maybe it's meditation, maybe it's yoga, something that allows you to kind of quiet your mind and allow for, source or God or whatever you believe in to speak to you, and for the creative space, to be opened up along the way. So I think they go hand in hand. And I got to tell you, the one thing I think that's important for anyone who's not on a fitness journey and would realize this from our conversation today, that it is really important for me, for the people I serve, and for my business as well. Things do get off track, just like you described. I had the same situation, I guess, over the course of several months, because I had moved and I was trying to navigate, new distances and, the aspects of what my day needed to include. And a couple things were easy, but there were some things that I'm like, gosh, I just can't seem to get this routine together. I can't seem to get the consistency. And I kept beating myself up over it, but I didn't stop trying to figure it out, because I knew how important it was. And I would try something and I'm like, okay, that's not working. And so I would try something else. And I finally found what worked. And so I think sometimes we need to experiment. I figured out, I found a place that was a little more local. I figured out the best fit for me to, be at that, gym with what I do, because I do teach classes, so that it wasn't just about teaching, but it was allowing me the freedom to have a place to go to that was finally convenient. And then, looking at our schedules sometimes, like you said, you have to just say, okay, this is what I'm going to plan, and this is the time I'm going to plan. But it doesn't have to be the same way. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever been through this, Vanessa, where someone's like, you just got to work out 3 days a week, right? It's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you just got to set it in there and plan it, put it on your calendar, lay it all out. And then we feel that pressure of, but my weeks don't look like that every week.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that, it's okay to be flexible. I'll look at my schedule on a Sunday and go, okay, this week, or on a Saturday and go, this week, it makes the most sense for me to do this based on what's on my schedule. But then I work it around, my commitments and those extra things, those appointments, or the, client
Yeah.
meetings, or anything you need to, instead of having it be so rigid that I'm having to not work out. I'm having to give it up because, there are things that happen in life. So I think it's important that people give themselves a little bit of grace, but at the same time, they keep pursuing finding what fits right for that stage of their life. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
and I love that you brought the flexible routines up, because
Mm-hmm.
this is something that used to get me really, really stuck for a long time. Was, okay, everybody that's talking about being successful says you have to get up at a certain time, you have to have a strict morning routine, you've got to fit your workout routine in a specific, plan it ahead of time, stay where you are. And I don't know what the word consistency means in my brain. Like, it doesn't compute for me, because I'm always all over the place. I'm a manifesting generator. And so I thrive on having my hand in many pots and just kind of popping
Mm-hmm.
around like a ping pong ball to different things. It's just how I get things done. I am a very high performer, and that's how I do it. If I have to just focus on one thing, I can't do it. But also, having commitments with mastermind.com, building two
Right.
businesses, I
Right.
can't be consistent with those things either. And
Right.
so when I learned to be more flexible, and if my goal is I want to hit the gym 3 days a week, then
Mm-hmm.
as long as I hit it 3 days a week, I don't care when it is. I don't
Right.
care if it, is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I don't do anything. I still hit it 3 days
Right.
a week. Right. And so I love that you mentioned that because
Hmm.
it's so important. And I think giving people that permission, and also the actual reality is that most people can't keep a consistent schedule. I think it's
Yeah.
easier for people to teach it that way, but the
Hmm.
reality is that everybody's life changes. Even if you're not somebody who's building a business and you're listening to this right now, your
Right.
life changes. You're going to want to go to the movies sometimes. You're going to want
Hmm.
to, celebrate friends or go to happy hour, or you're going to have family in town. And so
Doctor's appointments.
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
just like general life stuff. So to think
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
you everybody could be on one consistent schedule until the end of time is crazy and also boring. Oh my
Yeah.
God, I would be so bored.
Well, and you have to know your best times of day. That was one of the biggest things that I leaned into a long time ago. And every time I've tried to kind of go on
Hmm.
the opposite of that, it doesn't work for me. Like I'm a morning person, but I'm not a morning exerciser. I'm a morning walker. I like to walk with the dogs in the morning, love that quiet time. I am not a, 5 a.m. go to the gym kind of
Yeah.
gal. Like I want it at the end of my day because I'm creative in the morning. And so I feel like that connection to being really creative in the morning and getting some good things done, starting with that tone. And then by the end of the day, when my brain's starting to like go on overload and shut down, now I'm ready to go to the gym. I'm ready to kind of flush all that stuff out of my head and find me again in the middle of all of whatever's been going on during the day so that I can come back to my creative and kind of like, free up my mind through the physical movement of my body,
Yeah.
is probably one of the best ways that I found to do that. So I think it's honoring too what you figured out about yourself, right? What's the best time of day for you to go? Don't go at 4 or 5 a.m. just because everybody else is saying that they go at 4 or 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Or even trying things that feel a little bit too much. There's some great programs out there like 75 Hard. I have a lot of friends who have done that and they've done that multiple times. I think that's great if you feel like that fits your life and if you feel like you can make, commitments to things like that. But again, not doing what everybody else is doing, but finding what honors you allows you to build that consistency, I think that you're talking about too.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it also gives you permission to not rely on somebody else to go with you, which was huge for me in the beginning. As soon as I started to make friends at the gym, then I was like, oh, okay, now I have to go because like they're expecting me. I know they're going to be there. And then I started to make those connections where I'm like, I don't need to, like now when I go to body and I lift, 90% of the time, I don't go and lift with anybody. And I actually love that because being a part of dance fitness for so long, I love my dance fitness friends, but we will stand there and talk for hours after
Mhm.
class and catch up. And so what I love about this, because I'm, coaching clients all day and I'm on podcasts all day and I'm running
Mhm.
workshops and all of the things client facing in my bar, I can just go there and not talk to anybody,
Yeah.
lift, get what I need, and leave. I don't have to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And so I love having those options too.
Mhm.
So, for anybody who's listening, if you're more introverted, you actually like not going with a friend
Yeah.
because if you don't have that buddy system, you don't have to talk to anybody, which is
Yeah.
great. So,
Yep. Yep.
yeah.
Good example.
Yeah, thanks. I want to shift now into what you're focused on now. I want to talk
Mm.
about Standing Tits
Mhm.
Up and what we can expect. I know it is mid-June now, and you've got some fun releases
Mhm.
coming up. This will be aired in July, so it'll be a little bit
Mhm.
post, but still very fresh, still very new, and very exciting. So let's
Good.
shift gears into that.
Yeah, wonderful. I know I'm super excited. Standing Tits Up has really been something that has been in the works, internally and then coming out in this expression. Or since probably fall of 2024. I initially had the vision, the idea, it was beginning to come together. You and I have learned working with entrepreneurs that you have to honor the stages of the development of what it is that you're creating so that it feels right and it feels aligned. And so it took a while to come together because initially I was just ready to go gangbusters and it wasn't feeling aligned. So I pulled back to get back into that creative stage because it's very much a part of my journey and an expression of what I've experienced as a female entrepreneur and what I've helped and witnessed in other female entrepreneurs over the decades in business. and wanting to serve and support and help beautiful women like us to not have to take the decades that I did to find alignment, to lean into identity, and to understand really where those fundamentals were to help you become the best version of yourself, show up authentically, show up aligned, so that everything you're creating just feels magical with your life and feeds your soul in that process. So Standing Tits Up is going to be my podcast release, right? And I'll be releasing towards the end of June, just a couple weeks from now, and it'll be out by the time this airs. So I'm excited about that. And in the process of preparing for the podcast, somewhere along the way in that, Vanessa, and again, I'm, God-fearing woman. So I feel like God said, you need to take what you're creating here and you need to write about it. And so I kind of took a break from the creation and the release of the podcast and began to develop a book. And again, it felt very divinely inspired as a way of just me bringing things to a tangible resource based on the frameworks that I had laid out. So I wrote a book, and right now I'm in the final stages of the manuscript review, and then bringing that to publication through Amazon. I'm going to self-publish, so that will align at the same time as the podcast. So scheduled release of that book here at the latter half of June. So I'm super excited just to, like what you do, Vanessa, just be able to share your voice, your experience, and bring beautiful people on who can share what they have experienced as well, so that in doing so, we have a voice to impact the world for other entrepreneurs, especially female entrepreneurs, and allowing people to step into their best selves and their greatest power to be able to do amazing things in the world. So that's what my mission is through Standing Tits Up. So I'm looking forward to the book release and the podcast.
Yeah, I'm excited to get the book and to dive into it and start listening to episodes of your podcast. And, I'm curious because this is something that I think about a lot as somebody who has a podcast. It's everybody these days has a podcast, right? And now we're two more people of everybody who have a podcast, right? And so, the whole purpose of this podcast for me is to do it differently. Like, I don't script this podcast. I want people to see behind the scenes of business, the reality of it, the fact that you don't have to have a routine, or, that business is really the long game. This isn't like a goal of getting rich overnight. It does not happen like that, no matter what people tell you. Right. And so I think, slow growth is always great. And this podcast has had, slow, steady growth, which obviously I'm here for. But in a world where literally anybody can have a podcast, it is super, super important to stand out. And so I guess I'm just curious not what makes you stand out, because you just told us that, but what do you think is going to be the factor for it that is like that one super magnetic piece that other people who are doing things in our niche are not?
Great question. And I listened to something about a week ago. It was actually a podcast episode, and a woman who was sharing her experience with her podcast that she's had for a decade or so, and what she learned along the way. And her voice, her mission, and what allowed her to stand out unique developed over time as well. So the one thing that revealed to me, Vanessa, and this is just like a week or so ago, was number one, it reminded me that it's okay to be in the messy early stages, right? It's okay to have things a little messy. It's okay if what I'm envisioning is not quite there, right? It's because my intention is to be able to be really real, really raw, to really talk about what I feel is the foundation of every successful business for a woman entrepreneur. And that's alignment and identity, some of the things that we've been talking about today. And to really incorporate those for women to understand that is your business. You are your business. And if you are not your business first, all of the tools and the tactics and the algorithms and all those things are not going to have the impact that you want to see along the way. And I don't think we hear that enough consistently in the entrepreneurial space. So to answer your question, that's what I want to bring. And as I develop and expand the way that my voice is going to carry that forward, I think I'm going to find an increasing unique way to bring that. We're being very lovely and very polite here, but I am real and raw and, colorful in conversation once I really get going and I'm really in my element. And so I fully expect it to be about that. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. It doesn't need to be. Could be their shot of whiskey, right? So I'm actually excited for what you've already experienced a bit, because this is season 2 for you, right? With your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm excited to experience where you've already been, that kind of like figuring it out along the way and how to really relax and be yourself. And what is that brand voice? Because, it's one thing to know it fundamentally. It's one thing to have documented things on paper, but until you start actively really living it on a consistent basis, I don't think it expands. So I guess the best way to answer that is, I feel like there is a little bit of uniqueness because I want to lean in on that identity and alignment foundation for female entrepreneurs and really hone in on that, because that is the system that I think serves us best when we're there. But I'm excited to grow, in that process, to really find that next level of who I am, because I am my own listener. A few steps ahead in some cases, maybe many steps in other cases, but I am my own listener. I am the person that I wish that I had many decades ago when I was new in business. And so I'm excited to continue to grow to those next places so that I'm being a expression, of the product along the way as well.
Love it. And I know that we have really packed in this episode so far lots of solid advice for anybody who is new to an entrepreneurial journey. But if there was one thing that we didn't cover that you would like to impart as advice for somebody who's listening and maybe thinking about just getting started, is there anything else that you'd like to add for them?
Getting started with what specifically? Entrepreneurship as a woman?
Entrepreneurship.
Okay. Two solid things come to mind. Number one, surround yourself with female entrepreneurs who are ahead of you on the journey. It doesn't matter if it's one step ahead or 10,000 steps ahead. Surrounding yourself with other women who have navigated what you have as you're doing it yourself can help you step in leaps and bounds right through the process a little smoother. But also they're there to support. They're there to catch you. They're there to help you navigate that and grow and help to remind you to lean into yourself along the way. So I think it's so important. I didn't have enough of that in those early, probably the first early decades. Female entrepreneurs were not quite as prevalent. It was all the incredible male, role models that we have. So that would be one of my encouragements, is find your tribes, hang out here, come to this podcast all the time, listen to Vanessa, find your tribes, follow your people. But then also being, I'm going to use the word self-care. I'm not a fan of it, but self-care is not selfish, right? Selfish is not taking care of yourself. So if you want to create amazing things for your family, for the people that you want to impact through your business, you've got to take care of yourself first. Allow that to be a part of your business foundation, because it's so important. When you start it from the beginning, then it's easier to grow what you want to grow than if you're trying to squeeze it in later as a busy entrepreneurial woman. So that would be my 2.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Now, if people would love to dive into your stuff, knowing that it will be launched by the time this airs, how can they get a hold of you?
So I'm going to share 2 things, and then if we can put it written out in the show notes when you do
Absolutely.
this, that way they'll be able to see it. So one thing that'll be simple to remember is hello@standingtitsup.com. So hello@standingtitsup.com is a great way to connect via email. And that way, if there's anything else I need to help you navigate to, that'd be great. But the podcast is simply Standing Tits Up. You'll be able to find it on YouTube. And then the book also is Standing Tits Up, and it will be released on Amazon. So by the time this comes out, you should be able to just Google it on Amazon. I'm also on Instagram under the same name. There's some underscores in there, so I'll make sure, Vanessa, to get that to you so that it's laid out appropriately in the show notes.
Okay, awesome. I love that. I am so excited for it. I'm literally probably going to be your first purchaser when your book gets released. I am so excited. I cannot wait to listen to the podcast as well. Spoiler alert, you might find another episode on her podcast that features me as well, where we'll be talking about maybe some similar stuff, maybe some different stuff. We don't know quite yet. So would love to see you over there as well. Jen, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. I know that this one is literally jam-packed with information for people, so they're going to have a lot to digest. So thank you for pouring into us today.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, Vanessa. I'm so glad that you're in season 2, and you have been a wonderful influence, just setting the bar and showing how to show up in this environment and own who you are and you align your own identity. So thank you for being an inspiration to me just through the work that you're done. And thank you
so much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Rebel Rise podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and invite your friends to join us next week. This is your time. Now get out there and rise.